India and China are currently the largest single buyers of Russian crude oil. Both countries now account for 2/3 of all crude exports by sea from Russia, with China also receiving at least half of all crude exports via pipeline. And from a very low base, at the beginning of the year, India's imports of Russian oil have skyrocketed, reaching a peak in June and July, and largely maintaining these levels through November. Pakistan, which is experiencing economic difficulties as a result of recent devastating floods, wants the same crude oil discount as India and China. However, Russia rejected Pakistan's request for a 30 or 40% discount on Russian crude oil, stating that it could not offer a discount because all available volumes were already committed. According to Pakistani media, during discussions in Moscow, a Pakistani delegation led by State Minister for Petroleum Musaddiq Malik, a joint secretary, and officials from the Pakistan embassy in Moscow requested a discount. But the talks ended without a clear conclusion. However, the Russian government assured Pakistan that it would consider its request and communicate its decision through diplomatic channels later. Sources indicate that, at the appropriate time, Russia will be able to offer crude oil at the same prices it offers to its large client countries with stable economies. On November 29th, a Pakistani delegation flew to Moscow for a 3-day meeting with Russian officials to discuss the possibility of importing crude oil at a lower price, as well as payment options and shipping costs. While Pakistan has asked Russia to consider its demand for discounted crude oil supplies, India has significantly increased its oil imports from Russia in recent months. India's imports from the Middle East fell 16.2% to about 2.2 million barrels per day in August, while imports from Russia increased 4.6% to about 896,000 barrels per day in September. Today, the Indian government's intentions are economic, rather than political. It has to source oil from where it is cheapest. And it would be foolish not to take advantage of a crude oil discount. Other countries have also taken advantage of discounted Russian crude, for example, Sri Lanka, which has been grappling with a severe economic crisis. Russia has been selling oil at a discounted rate since March this year, after the Ukraine invasion. While China's purchases of Russian oil have fluctuated this year, falling in February at the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but then rising significantly in the following months. In March, China and India's combined oil imports from Russia surpassed those of the EU's 27 member states. India typically imports 2 to 5% of its crude from Russia, which is roughly the same amount as the US did prior to the announcement of a total ban on Russian energy products. India imported only 12 million barrels of Russian crude in 2021, with the vast majority of its oil coming from Iraq, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Nigeria. The US government had been critical of these purchases, but it has now stated that it accepts India's right to continue purchasing discounted Russian oil. The US has also stated unequivocally that it has no objections to Pakistan importing Russian crude oil, claiming that no sanctions against Russian energy exports to other countries are currently in place. A US State Department official was quoted in the paper as saying, "We recognize the pressure on governments to secure affordable fuel supplies. We have been very clear that each country will have to make its own choices, based on its own circumstances, in terms of energy imports," the official added. However, the spokesperson warned that Russia's actions in Ukraine and Europe have shown that it was not a reliable supplier of energy, adding that the US continues to encourage steps to reduce long-term dependence on energy supplies from Russia. The European Union was recently unable to reach a unanimous decision on whether or not to approve a price cap on Russian oil. It has been a point of contention among EU governments as to what the cap should be. This price cap is the West's attempt to punish Russia for its invasion of Ukraine by eliminating its oil income, while preventing a catastrophic rise in oil prices around the world. Although Russia's invasion of Ukraine prompted widespread international condemnation and the imposition of sanctions designed to drain the country's coffers, but revenues from fossil fuels and oil and gas exports have been very profitable for Russia. However, it remains to be seen whether Russia will agree to provide Pakistan with discounted crude in the near future, given the volumes of crude already committed to buyers like India and China.